Hello, everyone, and welcome to this evening's post-secondary funding presentation. My name is Heather McCauley, and I am the current chair of the Windsor-Essex Catholic District School Board PIC Committee. And with me tonight is Lisa Birmingham, who's the events coordinator for the PIC, as well as Paul DeMarco, who works for the board, who's in charge of running our tech for this evening. On top of that, we have representatives from the University of Windsor, St. Clair College, and Libro Credit Union. The whole purpose of this evening's presentation is to give you some ideas and help you plan for paying for post-secondary education. I have two children heading into post-secondary this year, and I know that I may have a lot of my own questions doing this. The PIC has been running this presentation for about 8 years. We've answered hundreds of questions from parents and students and gotten a lot of people on their way. And I know everybody always learns something new and probably ends up spending their money or getting some extra scholarships or something that they didn't know were out there. So we'll get right started now. And I'd like to introduce you to our presenters for this evening. In a few minutes, we'll hear from Libro Credit Union. And that is Nika Lauren, as well as Adriana Nelson. We're going to start this evening with St. Clair and the University of Windsor, who are putting this presentation together. So from St. Clair, we have Linda Ali and Judy Vlamick. And from the University of Windsor, we have Jackie Braithwaite. So thank you for coming, and I will leave it to you. I should say, if you have any questions, you can type them in the chat that's on the side of the presentation. We'll be reading the chat. We'll be reading it, and I'll be feeding the questions to the presenters.
So once again, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I'm Jackie Braithwaite, once again from the University of Windsor. Welcome. So this evening, we're going to be looking at these topics: developing your budget, potential expenses, potential revenue sources. We'll look at some strategies for saving and for spending, and we'll also touch upon scholarships, bursaries, of course, and awards at both the college and the university. And finally, the Ontario Student Assistance Program. This is Ontario's government student loan program. Over to you, Linda.
Hi, everyone. I'm Linda from St. Clair College. So first, we're going to start off by talking about how to develop your budget. Now, this is really important because the student's budget is different from a parent's budget. We encourage students to create their own budget, including everything from tuition and books to personal items and food, so they can see exactly what they would be spending. This is a good practice to help cut down on expenses that are not needed during the school year. Make sure you consider what expenses are priorities and set realistic goals for spending. Also, the students should ask themselves, how much debt am I really comfortable with when you graduate from your program? So now that you have a budget, how much the school actually costs? So I'll start off with college expenses. Our programs range in tuition costs from high to low. On the low end, starting at about $2,700, plus ancillary fees, books, potential residence costs, and other expenses, totaling about $12,000. We have also programs on the higher end, ranging about $5,000 for tuition, plus any fees, books, residence expenses, coming to about $16,000. Other expenses would be transportation costs, personal care, cell phone, internet, anything else that the student might incur during the school year.
Now we're going to take the same look at the expenses at the university level. We look at the high cost programs and low cost programs. This is using the 2021 tuition rates, and of course, these can be found right on our website, uwindsor.ca/cashiers, and you can just use the estimator. This is over an 8-month period. So keep that in mind. Over 8 months, this is the amount. So we're looking from between $20,000 to about $28,000 per year. Of course, your choices will impact your budget and the expenses. So by all means, you don't have to be spending these types of fundings, money. You can change and choose and select different components to help reduce the cost. So, for some potential revenue sources, Linda, did you want to take that one? Oh, that's me.
That's you.
So now that you have an idea of how much things are going to cost, where are you going to find the money? So, the first thing we're going to look at is we ask students to look at their own resources. What kind of income are they earning? Do they have any registered retirement savings plans, or their parents have those? They can start begging for money from their friends and family. And we also want you to take a careful look at external organizations like your employers. They often have really good things that you can take advantage of for the students themselves and the parents. Also, your employers may have it. Some religious organizations, credit unions, fraternal organizations, and then we will come back to the schools and the colleges. What kinds of awards do they have? Entrance awards, which are offered to students as they're coming into an institution. Bursaries, those are usually need-based awards. Some scholarships, merit-based awards based on your grades. Work study. The institutions all have work study. This is where students can work while they are going to school. And even during COVID, we still have work study students who do work. Student loans, obviously, from OSAP, which is the Ontario Student Assistance Program, or funding from other provinces if you are not an Ontario resident, and personal lines of credit. And we always encourage students to take advantage of the personal line of credits if they're in high cost programs.
So now that you create a budget and you know how much school might cost you, students should be savvy when it comes to spending. So ways to save would include your student ID card, which can give you discounts at different places, such as grocery stores, reduced rate bus passes at Transit Windsor, Via Rail discounts, and other different retailers that would accept things like the SPC student price card. Students can also opt out of the drug and dental plan at the beginning of the school year, which would put money right back into their pocket. Many campus bookstores, such as a college and a university, offer the buyback options for textbooks that are in good condition. As well, there is academic assistance through your department. So as Jackie mentioned, for example, work study, that might help give you some additional income. And lastly, I know at the college, and I'm sure at the university, there are student services that offer things like free tutoring. So if you do need help through the school year, instead of paying for a private tutor, you can get some free tutoring from those resources at the institution. And lastly, which we'll touch upon in a little bit, you can apply for scholarships, awards, bursaries, and government financial aid, all that would help you pay for your schooling.
Now, spending is one of my favorite things to do. However, when we have to pay for school, we have to try to stick to our budget. And most people, we have to admit, cannot resist a bargain. So we always encourage students to try their best to avoid impulse buying. Marketers know that emotion drives spending habits. So many people spend in response to loneliness, anxiety, disappointment, or boredom. And during COVID, we can see a lot of people just going out and spending money. Don't go shopping. Limit credit card purchases, or leave your credit cards at home, because often when students start university, they're given a lot of offers from credit card companies. And so we have to really advise students really carefully manage their credit. And their attitude, do they really need the latest iPhone, or can they survive with the current phone, right? Sell or swap items. That's one of the newest, latest trends. They don't go out and buy new clothes, they sell them, they swap them. Again, take advantage of those student discounts. They are available to you. And if they stick to their budget over time, they'll be able to do some savings. They'll be able to treat themselves occasionally. So we really try to encourage people to have good spending habits, because it really does pay off in the long run.
So
Now,
next, oh, is that you, Jackie?
yeah, I think that one was me.
Go ahead.
Scholarships, bursaries, and awards. I just wanted to touch upon and explain the difference, because we often speak about scholarship, bursaries, and awards, and we don't tell you what those differences are. We're always excited about discussing the subject because these are non-repayable assistance that the students can receive from university or college. Sometimes donors set these up, and so the university has that opportunity to award funding to students. External agencies may also set these up, and the funding may be provided automatically to students, and sometimes they have to apply for them. So what's the difference? Scholarships are usually based upon a student's grades, so we call that merit-based. Entrance scholarships occur prior to a student's getting into school. It's one way to attract a student to your institution by offering them a scholarship. Bursaries are usually based upon financial need. Now, you have to demonstrate financial need in some way. Usually, we determine need if a student applies for financial aid or OSAP, and if they have at least $1 of funding, that demonstrates that that student is financially needy. So that's one of the criteria that we use to determine financial need. And awards can be non-financial. Like you see on the screen there, someone's holding a cup. So it could be a medal, a cup, or just some kind of recognition. Sometimes they're based on merit-based or financial need. It could be either or. But usually for an award, the funding is a little bit less than what we would see for some of our scholarships. So those are the basic differences between them. For the university scholarships, bursaries, and awards, students who are automatically considered for entrance scholarships, it's usually based on their grades. So at the University of Windsor, 85% or above, 1,000. 90% or above, 2,500. 95% or above, 4,000. Some are renewable. Over 90%, it's renewable. What that means is if the student maintains a certain average each year, they will keep that scholarship. So that's what it means by being a renewable. The University of Windsor has over 30 prestigious entrance awards, these ones that you must apply for. So the student has to submit an application for these specific awards. So in addition to the automatic entrance, there's some that are application driven. For the application driven awards, April 30th is our deadline, which is coming on Friday, very soon. So if you have a student who's applying, keep that in mind, April 30th. Student athletes can also get awards. They can just contact golancers.ca for these types of awards. So once they arrive at the institution, so they're here now, let's say starting in September, they'll have an opportunity to apply for in-course scholarships. That's what those are called. And those require the submission of an application. The application can be found on the university website, and both merit and need-based awards are available. We always encourage students to pay careful attention to the deadline for awards because it really does make a difference.
So St. Clair College has its own version of entrance awards and other bursaries and scholarships that students are able to receive. The first being our entrance awards or academic scholarships. They're offered to students who have applied through OCAS and confirmed their programs by May 1st. We have two award levels, the first one being the entrance award of $750, and that's given to students who have a 75% average or higher in at least 6 or more of their grade 12 courses. We also have the academic award of $1,250, and that's given to students who have a grade 12 average of 85% or higher. Now, we must have at least 6 courses. So if your student has 7, 8, or even 9 courses in grade 12, we average out from all of those courses. Now, we use the marks received through OCAS, and it's based on midterm grades. After the entrance awards, we do offer tuition bursaries. So tuition bursaries are done throughout the year, and they're an online application that students can fill out either in October or February. These ones are financial needs based, so that means you would have to fill out a budget, and it's given to students who are enrolled full-time and must have at least a 2.0 GPA or higher. Students are eligible to receive the bursary once per academic year, and they usually run for about $200 to $500. As well, we do have general scholarships. So these ones a student would need to apply for online from October 1st until December 15th. They can submit one application through the student information system, and they would be matched for any scholarships that would meet their criteria. They're selected in the winter time, and they're contacted to attend an award ceremony where they would collect their check and say thank you to the donors of the scholarships. And then lastly, we do have a lot of in-course bursaries as well, ranging from athletic awards, which would mean if you play a varsity sport, you can get a scholarship of $1,250 per semester. We also have the esports or the gaming bursary, and those run twice a year as well. We offer the Specialist High Skills Major Award if you have the SHISM credential on your high school diploma, and you would need to apply for that late summer in early September by submitting your diploma. Students would also have to have a 75% average or higher, and that's a $1,000 scholarship. We do offer bursaries for Ontario Skills, the First Robotics or GELT Skilled competitions, ranging from $500 to $1,000, and various other marketing bursaries that are run throughout the year, as well as the First Generation and Indigenous Student bursaries. And don't forget that a student can get more than one bursary and scholarship. I've seen accounts with multiple bursaries and awards that completely cover the tuition costs above and beyond. In addition to that, we also offer opportunities for students to apply for external scholarships. So those would be scholarships offered by third-party organizations that we have advertised on our St. Clair College website, and I believe on the U Windsor website, as well as other sources such as Scholarship Canada and yconic.com. There are so many different opportunities that students can take advantage of as long as they go through all of the details, see if they meet the criteria, and just be proactive and looking at the different types of opportunities available, because sometimes these scholarships are overlooked and can go unclaimed. Make a note that each of these ones have a different deadline and different criteria and submission process, but it is worth their while to maybe write up an essay and save it, and you can reuse it for other opportunities slightly, just change the wording a little bit, and it would help you to get that much more funding throughout the school year.
Linda?
Yeah.
We have a couple of questions, and I just wanted to see if we were going to touch on them. People are asking where they find the list of scholarships and bursaries, and specifically, are we getting there? And then specifically about any disability bursaries or scholarships.
So for the first question, if they go to the stclaircollege.ca website and go on the financial aid webpage, we have a menu on the right-hand side that lists all of our awards, such as entrance awards, bursaries, external links. Everything is listed there categorically, and students can just click on each option to see if it meets their criteria, and all of the information is available there. As for the second question, that's more so part of the OSAP application. So I believe it will come up as we start discussing more of the OSAP aid, because there is option to have a BSWD bursary as part of your OSAP application.
And same, also, Jackie? Yeah.
Yes, for the University of Windsor, once the student submits their Winsight profile application, all of the scholarships or bursaries that are applicable to the student are displayed, and the student will then have the opportunity to say, yes, I want to apply, or no. There are some that do not. It's 3 sections. The first section is an automatic consideration, so they don't have to apply for those. The second section, the student has to say, yes, I do want to apply for this scholarship and award, and then it may require some supporting documentation that they would need to submit along with that application. And the third section of our award application is those that are external, so a departmental award or scholarship. So they may have to contact the department for further information to get those. And so it's automatically provided to the student based on the program of study. We do have a list on, usually have a list on our website. However, we changed our platform recently, and so that list is not searchable right now, but it will be out there. We do have quite a number of scholarships available. We award over $11 million in scholarships to students each year.
Wow.
I wanted to add one more thing, actually. We also advertise all of our awards and their deadlines and all of the information through our social media channels as well as on our website. So if students want to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram, anytime we have bursary opportunities or any kind of award opportunities, it is advertised online as well. That way the student can go ahead, log in, or go on the website and apply.
Excellent. One more question. Now that and I just wanted to say to everybody that the things that you're hearing specifically about the University of Windsor and St. Clair College will apply in general to any school that your children are attending or that you are attending. They'll just be in different places, but there'll be a place for financial aid on every university and every college's website, I'm sure. As well, you'd be able to contact those offices. But now that colleges and universities are working together and offering programs that a student goes some years to the university and some years to the college, do you know how they would change their application for scholarships and bursaries? Can they apply to both?
So that would be like our collaborative nursing program. So it's the institution that the student is attending, which will be providing them with a scholarship or bursary.
Okay. Perfect.
Okay. So let's turn our attention to OSAP, which is the Government of Ontario Student Assistance Program. So that's the acronym, Ontario Student Assistance Program. So what is financial aid? So financial aid is money that's provided to you by the government to help pay for school. The application is generally available in May. We encourage students always to apply by the end of June or as soon as it comes out, because it does take a few weeks to process the application and get all the documentation together. With one application, students will then be considered for both grants, which is money they do not have to repay, and loan funding, which the student is responsible for repaying, not the parent. It is in the student's name. As previously mentioned, many bursaries and awards have a need-based component, so often need is assessed by whether or not a student is eligible for financial aid. So that's why we always encourage students to apply early for financial aid, and that ensures that the university has time to process their application, and then they'll have an idea of the amount of money that they are eligible to receive. It's available for both full-time and part-time students. The difference is on the full-time program, living expenses are calculated, and under the part-time program, it's only the cost of your tuition, childcare. So the amount of funding will be different.
So how is OSAP aid determined? So essentially the formula is that they look at your educational costs, so your tuition and fees, books and supplies and equipment and all of the associated costs to education. They deduct that from your expected financial contribution, which would be the student's contribution, parent contribution, and if applicable, the spousal contribution, as well as any assets that the student might have. And they arrive at your calculated financial need. And from that, they determine how much OSAP you're eligible for, which would be a mix of grant and loan funding. Now, if you wanted to use the aid estimator, you can log on to ontario.ca/OSAP, and it can give you a general idea of what you could be getting if you fill it out based on the program you had in mind. I was just going to do one more little bit. The government does expect that students and parents do contribute to the cost of education. So there is a student fixed contribution for the amount of $3,600 that goes for all students. However, last year, due to COVID-19, the federal government did change the expected contribution for students from $3,600 to zero, but it did remain the same for parents. Also, as well, RESPs are not used in assessing their OSAP entitlements. And again, if you wanted to have an idea of how much you would get, you can use the aid estimator online.
So people are going to say, okay, so how much money can I get? So they are limits. So students who live in a penthouse will get the same amount as a student who shares with someone else. So we're not looking at your costs in that sense. So students have to be careful coming into their funding amounts. So it depends on the financial need. After we've calculated that we've just gone over, the limits are $545 weekly for single dependent and independent students for a 34-week program, which is two terms, up to $18,530. For married and sole support parents, obviously the amounts do change, up to $830 per week and maximum 28 to 20 over a 34-week program, which is 8 months. Now, we want to touch upon the bursary for students with disabilities. That provides up to $2,000 in additional funding, and the Canada Student Grant for Service and Equipment for persons with permanent disabilities provides up to $20,000. So students are eligible if they have a permanent disability, and that's defined as having a physical or mental impairment that restricts their ability to perform daily activities necessary to participate in studies at a post-secondary level, and that is expected to remain with them for their entire life. So the funds that are awarded to these students are over and above the basic amount for financial aid. These funds are specifically given and targeted to students for their disability-related educational services and equipment, such as note takers, tutors, interpreters, technical aids, those types of things. Once that funding is given to the student does need to spend it. Let's say they needed a note taker. They will provide the funding to the note taker. They need a receipt. The receipt then comes back to the institution to document that they've spent that money. Okay, so that's the bursary for students with disability and the Canada Student Grant for persons with permanent disabilities, both of those two together. One's a provincial program and one's a federal program. Again,
one question in terms of OSAP with the $3,600. Was that from a student, and was the parent amount equal to that? You said the parent amount didn't change, but the student amount dropped. What is the expected contribution from parents and students? Do you know?
Well, it depends on their income.
Oh, okay.
Parent income is taken into account, right, to determine their contribution.
Okay.
So the ministry had changed it for the students given COVID. And so we hope that will continue for next year.
Okay.
The grants did double last year, and in the budget, it seems that they will maintain the level of grants to students for this upcoming year. But the final details have not been given out at this time. We don't know yet. And that's one of the reasons why when you look at this particular infographic, that we can't do an estimate for September 2021, although the aid estimator is on the website. It says you're requesting an estimate for the 21-22 academic year. It will be available in spring, which is now, but they haven't finalized all the details yet, so they can't give you an estimate until they finalize these details. But it's coming.
Hopefully soon, yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
So now that we have more information, a lot of questions that we get during the springtime when students are applying is, what's my status, full-time or part-time? As a general rule, in order to apply for full-time OSAP funding, a student must be enrolled in at least a 60% course load. And for students with a permanent disability, their full-time eligibility is a 40% course load. So typically, if you're in a semester where 6 courses would be full-time and you're only taking 3 of those courses, technically you're at a 50% course load. And unless you're a student with a permanent disability, that's not enough for full-time OSAP funding. You would need to add another course or 2 or 3 to receive full-time funding. As well, there is part-time OSAP. So for students registered in 20 to 59% of a course load, they could be eligible for part-time funding. If it's a student with a permanent disability, that's also 20% up to a 40% course load. However, when they reach the 40% course load, they can either request to be full-time or part-time funding. The difference being that Jackie mentioned there's no living costs associated with part-time funding. We have here, this is a nice screen to save or screenshot. We also have it on our website. It is just like simple steps to applying for OSAP. So we've broken it down into 7 easy steps. First one being logging online, ontario.ca/OSAP. That will take you to the registration page where the student will have to enter in their personal information, like their SIN number, birthday, so that they create a profile with OSAP. And at the same time, they'll get their OAN number, which is their OSAP access number. And this is the number that you keep and that you use to log in every time you want to access your account. After you create your profile, you'll be asked to start a new application. And once you submit your application, which you can save and continue at a different time, which is nice and helpful for students who don't have all the information on hand right away, you submit your application, and then it will give you a list of required documents that you must submit to complete your application. This could be as simple as consent pages for the student and the parents, or something more complicated, like if you are a student with a disability, maybe your medical forms or other documentation that you need to support from your application. You can upload all of those documents online. You don't need to come in person or mail them anymore. Everything is done through your OSAP account, really quick and easy. And then step 6 is once you do have your assessment from OSAP, they will ask you to complete your MSFAA. That stands for your Master Student Financial Assistance Agreement, which is your lifetime loan agreement. And this needs to be completed through the National Student Loan Service Center. They do email the student when it's available with instructions, and it's pretty simple. You do use the link that they send you with the MSFAA number, and this must be done in order to continue on to your funding, because that's where they ask what your banking information is if and when they deposit funds into your bank account. And your OSAP application will not proceed if you don't complete your MSFAA. And lastly, step 7 is where you can track your status online, see how much funding you're getting. If you need to change, update, appeal something, everything is done online through your OSAP account.
Now, how do you get your money? That's the top question. Well, financial aid is dispersed toward the beginning of each semester. Interestingly enough, 60% is given up front for in the second semester. So here's where your budgeting really does have to come into play. You have to be careful with spending your money. If your application was done correctly and you're enrolled in the correct number of courses that you told us that you were going to be enrolled in, funding will be sent to the university to pay the tuition fees. If the full tuition is not covered by OSAP, students will need to pay their outstanding balance by the tuition fee deadline so that they don't incur any late fees. Once the financial aid funds are sent to the university, if there are any remaining funds left over, those will then be deposited into the student's bank account.
Well, it's been said that education is a ladder to opportunity, and investing in your post-secondary education is an investment in your future. So what does that mean? It means first, research your program. Know what interests you and what you'll be successful in. Develop your budget so that you're prepared for the cost of school and you prioritize your expenses. Estimate the costs and resources so that you're not financially stressed throughout the school year. And lastly, understand the funding options available. We spoke about OSAP, bursaries, scholarships, RESPs, maybe parental assistance, a part-time job, and savings. All of that can help contribute to the cost of education.
Thank you guys so much for joining us. If you have any questions, we're here and available to assist you. Sometimes, however, we find that there's some questions that are a little bit more sensitive that you don't want to ask in public. And so you can simply contact us with our email address or contact us by phone. Our phone lines are open and available every day from 10 to noon at the university. So you can call us or email us and we'll be able to respond to those types of perhaps sensitive questions.
Yes. We're opened 9 to 4:30 every day, Fridays 10 to 4. We'll also be more than happy to answer any of your questions through email or by phone, and hopefully when we're back up and running, in person.
So are you answering the phones directly now? I know that some people don't like to leave messages. Can they get a live person when they call, or do you leave a message and knowing someone will call you back?
Yeah.
I swear we're live.
You're live. Excellent.
10 to noon every day.
All
And
right.
emails are always answered,
Okay.
usually within 24 to 48 hours. In our busy period, it could take, a little bit more than 5 days, but
Yep.
yeah, very responsive.
So everyone should take a screenshot or a photo or whatever of this screen. As well, you could always call the university or college that your child is attending and ask for financial aid. Of course, there's my phone again. I had a couple of questions. Do we know when the OSAP applications will open?
No, I don't know.
Not yet?
I don't have a clue.
That's all right. Someone's asking, if you get approved for loans and grants, can you just take the grants and not take the loans?
Yep. You can do grant funding only. So once you see how much funding that you've been allowed for from OSAP, you can choose the grant funding only option. And if during the school year you realize you might need the loan, you do have the option to change it, and they'll give it to you at a prorated amount, whatever number of weeks of studies left.
Oh, nice. Someone's asking about single parents versus married parents. Is there a difference in your OSAP application? Do you put in income for both parents or just for one parent?
So if you're a sole support parent, then you would only put in the income for that parent. Married parents would put in for both parents because you're filing a joint income tax. If you're divorced, it's the parent with whom the student resides with more than 50% of the time.
Okay.
Or if the parent, just to add to Jackie, if the primary parent is remarried, and that's where the student lives with, it would be that primary parent plus their new spouse's income on the application.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
Does OSAP cover monthly expenses for living expenses for a student?
Under the full-time program, it does, but not under the part-time program.
Okay.
And those expenses are calculated, like I said. So you can, if your son or daughter live in a high-rise apartment building with a chauffeur and, a doorman, unfortunately, we're not going to recognize the full amount of those costs.
Right.
But it's taken into account the average costs and average expenses of a student.
Okay.
Ontario
Perfect.
Standard.
Ontario Standard, yeah.
Based on Toronto expenses. So students may think it's not enough, but it is actually based on a Toronto standard.
Okay.
It's still not enough, but that's what they said it's based on.
All right. There's a few more questions coming in. I'm going to move us to the Libro presentation, which is about using your RESPs, and then we'll come back. I promise, like I said, I'm watching the chat for questions. But perhaps while we're gone, someone's asking for other websites for scholarships. Perhaps you guys can come up with other options for us when we come back. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speakers from Libro. We reached out asking for someone who could give parents some tips if they have their RASPs and they're wondering how to use them. The best ways to use them, we're going to get to that question. So with us tonight from Libro Credit Union are Nika Lauren and Adriana Nelson, and I'll throw the screen over to them.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having us. And Jackie and Linda, that was a fantastic presentation with a ton of great information. So thank you for sharing. I'm just going to introduce myself a little bit. My name's Nika Lauren. I'm a community manager with Libro Credit Union. I'll tell you a little bit about Libro. We are Libro, we're focused on growing prosperity in Southwestern Ontario by investing 100% of our profits back into the people, businesses, and communities that we serve. It means that we have a purpose beyond profit. It's an approach that goes beyond earning a profit, and it means we consider a triple bottom line being people, planet, and profit when making decisions and building our strategy. Libro is proud to be a certified B Corporation since 2018, joining the leaders of the global movement of people using business as a force for good. And we meet higher standards of social and environmental performance, transparency, and accountability. Allow me to introduce you to Adriana. Thank you.
Hi, so my name is Adriana. I am the investment specialist here at Libro Credit Union. I have been with the company for almost 7 years now, doing a variety of different roles and tasks. I am actually an alumni, St. Clair alumni. I graduated the finance program there, and it was a fantastic program. Today, as already mentioned, we're going to be talking about RESPs, and I'm having a hard time. Sorry, technical difficulties. Having a hard time switching over my slide. Oh, here we go.
Okay. There it goes.
Sorry about that. Oh, now it's giving me a hard time again. Okay, here we go. All right, so we're going to be talking about RESPs today. As already mentioned, we're mostly going to be focusing on how to withdraw, but I want to make sure that everyone has a refresher, has all the information that they need for it to make sense. So Registered Education Savings Plan, it is a type of savings account used to save to finance education. The major benefit to this type of savings plan is the grant used to top up your contributions. Now, with the grant and the money that you put in yourself, you can purchase investments with. Now, what may be relevant, will likely be relevant to many of you with RESPs, is that maybe within the next 4 to 5 years, you're going to be considering starting to withdraw from it. So making sure your investments are structured properly to facilitate that is very important. Some investments are locked in and you can only access it after they mature. So making sure that that money is going to be there when you need it is important. So touching base with your financial advisor to make sure that that's going to well work out is really important. Another thing too is if you are invested in the markets, mutual funds, stocks, that sort of thing, you want to make sure that you are taking the appropriate amount of risk. So very briefly, RESPs are set up by the subscriber. Often it is the parent, not always. The contribution per beneficiary the max contribution is $50,000. And again, the purpose is to finance post-secondary education. Very briefly touch on the grant. So the government will match up to 20% of your contributions to a maximum of $2,500 that you contribute per year per child. And they will do that for a maximum of 10 years. The lifetime limit that you can receive from a grant is $7,200. There are additional grants and bonds that you would have to qualify for to receive money on top of that, yeah. So what we really want to focus on today is how do we access this money now? So there's 3 different ways we can make withdrawals. So there's the educational assistance payment, there's a refund or just a withdrawal of the contributions, and then there's the accumulated income payments. So let's get into that. So the educational assistance payment are a withdrawal of the interest earned, grant, and bond from the RESP to help a beneficiary pay for post-secondary education. These are taxable at the hand of the students. There are limits to how much can be withdrawn within the first 13 weeks of schooling. You do need proof of enrollment before withdrawal can be processed. Now, it's good to reach out to your financial institution directly to find out exactly what they need. Sometimes they can require different things. They may need more receipts. And then make sure that that is done ahead of time before you're going to need to pay the bill. Sometimes it can take at least several days. It may take a week or two to actually have the money in your account. So it is important that it is done ahead of time. So full-time students, there is a maximum amount that they are limited to withdraw within the first 13 weeks. So it's either $5,000, or it's the actual educational expense, whichever is less. For part-time students, the 13 weeks applies, but the maximum is $2,500, or it's the actual educational expense, again, whichever one is less. After 13 weeks, you may request any available amount with no limit unless the student takes a break and does not re-enroll in a qualifying educational program within 12 months. So say they finish the 13 weeks, they're not happy with the program, it's not for them, so they decide they're going to take a little break. So as long as they re-enroll in something else within that 12-month period, then the 12-week rule will no longer apply, does not apply to them. A student is also eligible to receive payments for up to 6 months after completing school, as long as those expenses would qualify for this EAP program. And it is the subscriber that decides when and how much to pay the beneficiary. So the beneficiary doesn't have access to the RESP. It is the subscriber that will be going in to fill in the paperwork and doing all that. Payments may be used for tuition, accommodation, books, supplies. Basic CRA is basically fine with anything, any reasonable educational expense. Anything that's going to help the student graduate is fine. So let's say they need a vehicle to drive from home to get to school. A down payment on a car, purchasing a vehicle would be fine for the EAP. So students must be enrolled in a qualifying education program at a designated institution. Full-time means 10 hours each week for 3 consecutive weeks. Part-time program in Canada, they must last 3 consecutive weeks and requires a student to spend at least 12 hours per month on the courses within the program. If they are attending school outside of Canada, the program needs to be a minimum of 13 weeks. So in order for them to withdraw the interest earned grant bond, so the EAP, the institution needs to be eligible. It needs to be on this designated list, which it's a very extensive list. Pretty much all the accredited colleges are included, technical institutions, trades, and even if you don't find the institution that the student is going to, you can request to have it added. And also keep in mind that 10 hours per week or 12 hours per month also includes if they are doing an apprenticeship or a co-op. And keep in mind that this is specifically about the interest you earned and the grant and the bond that you received. Your contributions, the money that you put in yourself, there's no limit. The 13-week rule doesn't apply for that. So for taxes, the money that you already contributed has already been taxed. So when you take the money out, you don't have to worry about tax implications for yourself. You don't really have to worry about tax implications for the student either. They will be claiming the grant and the money that was earned as income, but they're maybe working part-time, maybe just through the summer, maybe they didn't work at all. So generally they're in a very low tax bracket, or they're not going to be worrying, or they don't have to pay tax on it at all. So on to the next one. Contributions are made after tax dollars, and therefore they can be removed at any time. This should be avoided in order to maximize the value of the plan. Any withdrawals may restrict future grant payments. If the beneficiary is not currently enrolled in a qualifying institution and the funds are not being used for educational purposes, the subscriber may repay the grant received for those contributions. Beneficiary will not qualify for grants for the current year and the next 2 years on subsequent contributions. Grant room will not build for the next 2 years, so that's a permanent loss of grant of grants that they could have earned. So this is really to encourage funds to stay within the plan and for the funds to be used for to finance the education. And the last one is the accumulated income payments. So these are withdrawals from an RESP, and it's paid out to the subscriber, so the plan holder, which is often, not always, but it's often the parents. So this is if none of the intended beneficiaries actually pursue post-secondary education. And it can only be collected under certain circumstances. So all beneficiaries under the plan, obviously they will not be attending post-secondary education. All beneficiaries have reached the age of 21. The plan must have been in existence for at least 10 years. And the subscriber must be a Canadian resident. There is also an option to transfer up to $50,000 to the subscriber or the subscriber's spouse to their RSP. They must have the contribution room within their RSP to do that. If they don't have the room, they would have to take it out in cash. And on the money that was earned, and on the money that was earned, there would be a penalty tax of 20% on top of the marginal tax rate, depending on where they fall in with the tax brackets. And of course, the grant would have to be repaid. And this kind of just goes over that again. Again, your contributions that you already put in has already been taxed. So you don't have to worry about that. It's just the withdrawal of the money, the growth, the money that you earned that you have to be taxed on. If you have the room in your RSP, you can always just move it directly there. And of course, any grants, if it's not going to be used to finance education, then it has to be repaid back to the government. Another option, if the beneficiary is not attending school, is to find an alternate beneficiary. They have to be under the age of 21, and they need to be a sibling of the former beneficiary. In this case, if there is a sibling or they're related by blood or adoption, the grant can be transferred over to the new alternate beneficiary. So Libro, we do have an RESP offer. We want to help your kids reach their dreams by investing in their future today. So we are offering to pay for the first deposit when a new automatic contribution is set up to an RESP. Another thing that I do want to add too is that every year Libro does pay out a scholarship every year. So we have numerous applicants around Southwestern Ontario, and every branch will choose an applicant. We also offer free accounts to anyone aged 13 and 26. There's no monthly fee, and it's essentially unlimited. And it doesn't matter if they pursue secondary education or not. It's the age category that gives them that free account. So I was very general today. RESPs can get fairly complex and pretty in-depth, and there's many little rules. So we're here to help. I'm in the next slide right here. Here's our contact information. You can reach out if you need any information specific and geared towards you. It could be different for every single person. And of course, always reach out to your own financial advisor too. They would probably be able to answer as well. But yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
It's always nice to hear tips, and people have younger kids too coming up that they may be able to use some of the other stuff, but as well as pulling money out. All right, so if you pull your slide down, I've got some great questions for everybody. Let me start with a couple RESP questions. Someone's asking what kind of additional grants can you have go into your RESP?
So there is there's the 20%, and then there is another supplement that is based on income. So you can get another 10% on top of that yet, or maybe another 20%. It depends on where your income falls. And then there is the bond as well, which is geared towards a low income. And then that is also obviously dependent on the family income.
Okay. I do know the answer to this, that the RESP does not go directly to the university. You apply, the money is given to you, and then you send it to the university. And you don't, and this is another thing I know, is you do not have to use up all your RESPs before you apply for OSAP. I think that's probably one of the best things I learned in my years of doing this, is that you can have outstanding RESPs. You can divide them among the 4 years or whatever, and you don't have to have used that up before you apply for OSAP. Let's see. Someone's asking about, they have multiple beneficiaries on the same RESP. Does the 13-week rule apply every time a student starts?
Yeah, so it would be per beneficiary.
Okay.
Because usually if you have, it depends on the type of RESP plan too, because there's the family plan and then there's individual plan.
Right.
I mean, either way, it's going to kind of work out the same way. But even with the family plan, you're going to have the money divvied up, allocated towards each beneficiary.
Okay.
So yes, the 13-week.
Everybody gets their 13 weeks. Okay.
Yes.
Someone's asking, are you better to use it all up in case a student doesn't finish their post-secondary education, and then the money would have to be given back in terms of a grant? Ooh.
I mean, I guess. Because at the end of the day, the government wants their portion to go towards education.
Education, yeah.
So, I mean, if you're worried about them not finishing school, then yeah, take the grant, do the EAP. Remember that the EAP is separate from withdrawing from your own contribution, right?
Okay, that's good to know.
So, yeah, so you may want to start with just the EAP withdrawals. That way you're using up the grant money first. Because, like I said, at the end of the day, the government just wants that money to go towards education.
Okay.
So you may want to use that first, and then your own contribution room if you're not sure if they're going to finish or not.
Right.
Yeah.
You can save that. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
This is a general question. Someone's asking about scholarships, if that counts for grade 11 grades or grade 12 grades.
For us, it's a top 6, U or M. So students can take some of those courses in grade 11 or in 12. For the University of Windsor, we're looking at your top 6. So yeah, I'm not wherever they
doesn't matter when you take them.
Nope, we're just going to look at your top 6. Linda?
For the college, yeah, it's a little different. So we look at only grade 12 courses, whether you take them actually in grade 12 or you took them earlier. And it's not, for us, it's not top 6. We'll average up 6 or more for entrance awards specifically.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I just want to go back to the previous question of when is it better? Is it better if your student doesn't finish school when they intend to start school? The average time it takes now, students are taking between 4 to 6 years to finish their degree. So a lot of students may go to school, stop out, and return. And so when you're looking at your educational savings plans, don't be so quick to close them out or change them, because that student actually might go back to school. And then a lot of students are pursuing their master's level degrees too. So just keep those things in mind.
So I just want to build on that. You can have that RESP plan open for 36 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So I'm not saying that means that you can that means that you keep the grant and there's no tax implications. But to build on that, if you're not sure about their going back or whatever, you can keep it open for a long time.
Okay.
To wait out. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just in general, probably anybody can answer this. Someone's just asking what a personal line of credit is for a student.
it's money but they have to pay it back, right? So
Right.
for our high cost programs, we're looking at your business programs, your law, your engineering programs. We're talking it's an investment. So some students get $100,000 worth of a online of credit because these banks know that they're going to be making some seriously big bucks when they finish, hopefully, school. And so the students are eligible for these line of credits to help them pay for school. And so I know that's scary to some parents that you may have to sell your houses to pay it off, but your house is worth a lot more now. So it's okay.
Right. So for high level programs, when OSAP or your personal financials aren't going to cover it, personal line of credit is the way to go. Now, it would have a better interest rate than doing it on a credit card, but not as good of an interest rate as doing OSAP. Does anyone happen to know about what OSAP's interest rates are running? Someone asked.
So the interest rate only takes place after the student would leave their program.
Right.
There is no interest occurring when they're in school full time.
And they have, what, 6 months after they finish? I think before the first
They
payment?
have 6 months, when they can start making payments, unless
Right.
they haven't found employment yet, at which point they can apply for repayment assistance to help bring down that monthly cost.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
But
It's the
right
same
now
thing with the banks.
it's less than 8%.
Okay, perfect.
It's less than 8% because it uses prime plus
Yeah.
Minus, yeah.
so they have a number of years, 10 years to prepay it.
Another advantage to student lines of credits is that often, like, every financial institution is going to be different, but for the most part, it's interest only payments, and then you're only paying interest on whatever you're using. So it's nice. It's generally very affordable while the student is in school, and then they have flexibility to pay it down if they maybe work during the summer and then use it again when school starts back in September. So flexibility, low interest rates, affordable is what I would take away from that.
Excellent. Thank you. St. Clair College, they're wondering, probably for the university too, when will people know about their entrance scholarships? When do students get that, and how do they get that information?
This year it's a little different. We're still working on it because there's like a quadmester going on with the high school. So typical midterm grades. We're just thinking if we should push it back or do it earlier to the best advantage of the students.
Right.
But normally speaking, we do send out the letters in June. So probably closer to the end of June this year, and they'll be notified. Sometimes the schools like to get it in time for graduation.
Right.
But regardless, they might have a list, but regardless, they will get letters. Probably by the end of June, they'll be notified if they've received it or not.
Okay. And it's nice that they're doing it for the greatest benefit of the students. So if it does take longer, know that that's probably a good thing.
Yeah, it is a little bit harder this year, but we're looking into making sure that most of the students get, they qualify.
Somebody asked about entrance and academic scholarships being automatic. As Jackie said earlier, there are things that are automatic and things that you have to say, yes, I want to apply, and things that you have to do alternate applications for. And your students will see those in their profiles with the university or the college. Correct?
That is correct.
Excellent.
The college... Go ahead, Jackie. Were you going to say something?
I was going to say what you were saying about the automatic entrance. The university, we do an early application or early awarding. So we would normally send out some early awards in January, February. Of course, your grades might change. If they do, we'll bump up the amount that we're giving you. And again, for those application-driven ones, we'll be selecting those after the close
deadlines. Yeah.
April 30th deadline. Yes.
Okay.
Linda was going to say something.
Oh, yes. Sorry. Yes, about the entrance awards. So our entrance awards are automatically generated based on the grades submitted through OCAS, like I mentioned earlier. However, unlike the university, we don't have a system where the student can say, yes, I want to apply to this, this, and this. The student more so would have to look for the awards or the scholarships and bursaries that they would qualify for, and then submit an application separately with all the links being on our website. The only exception is the general scholarships that are the ones that are kind of donor driven, and those run from October to December. And then that's one application online for all of the donor scholarships. But we have many others are unrelated to the donor scholarships.
Okay.
Yeah.
Someone's asking about contributions to RASP, how much you should contribute each year to get the max grant. But the question implies that the max grant is $2,500, but the max grant is actually $500 on a maxed out contribution of $2,500. Yeah, paying attention.
Boom. That's exactly right. So the maximum amount you can receive from the basic grant every year is $500. So you wouldn't really want to put in more than $2,500 in 1 year unless you're catching up from previous room. So just because you don't have an RESP account open doesn't mean you're not generating room. Technically, the room starts generating once the child is born. Okay. And you can, say you waited several years before opening one up, well, you can make up for that, but 1 year at a time.
1 year at a time, and you can get the grant for years that you're making up.
Exactly. So, for example, I have one client right now that I'm working with to catch up on the grants. So we put $5,000 in every year, and then that's when you get $1,000. But that is because we are carrying forward previous grant room. Okay, if that makes sense.
And only 1 year and one extra year at a time. Perfect.
Exactly. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Here we go. Now, the ones I haven't read yet. What are the recommended RESP investment strategies after a student starts university? Money market, GIC bonds. What is there a recommendation? I imagine it would depend on the market at the time.
Yeah, so it's very difficult for me to give a recommendation because there's so many variables on the individual, right? Yeah. Like risk tolerance and the individual's personal financial situation. Very generally, this isn't financial advice necessarily, right, but it is good to be in a lower risk investment because you are now coming up to maybe 4 or 5 years, maybe less, of where you need to start withdrawing from it. So if there is a dip in the market, you may not have the time to recover and for it to come back. Right. So yeah, making sure that your investments are structured appropriately and into your comfort level as well is very important.
Excellent. This is an interesting question. Someone's asking, can I wait until my child is done university and use their RESP to pay off their OSAP loans? Looks like yes.
Yeah, you could. I didn't see what.
Not great advantages, but yeah.
Pardon?
Not great advantages to that plan, probably, but yeah.
You may get some more growth from leaving more money in there from your investments, but as long as you have, just keep in mind that you do have to prove that, like for the grants and the bonds and the interest earned, you do have to provide proof of enrollment.
Right. Oh, so you'd have to be in school. Okay.
And you have to, and then you have 6 months after too, right? Okay. And your financial institution may require receipts, a breakdown of the tuition costs and everything like that. So that's something you have to keep in mind.
All right. Mm-hmm. How long does anyone do university and college? You know how long you have to pay OSAP back from the time you finish school? Imagine that's depending on the amount of money.
That depends. So students will receive, regular students have 340 weeks of entitlement. Students with a disability have 520 weeks of entitlement, so they can receive funding for that length of time. Generally, students can repay once they consolidate their loans over about 10 years approximately. Students with disabilities can apply for different programs. There's some different income contingency funding available if you can't afford to repay it. But just say, on average, it's about 10 years that you'll have to repay your funding.
Okay. And if you take an undergrad and then go back for a law degree or a master's or something like that, your OSAP doesn't start until after you finish school, not just finish your undergrad, correct?
Anytime you stop attending at least half time, your loans go into repayment. So,
Okay.
so if you continue, you're fine. But
Yeah.
you may have a semester where you're not going to be, so your loans you
May
have
kick
that
in if
6
it was
months, right? So
right.
things happen.
Yeah.
So just always keep your loans in good standing. That's one of the things we always tell students. Contact the National Student Loan Service Center. They are the ones who house all of the loans. So we always want to encourage people to keep your loans in good standing, and then you can always receive loans in the future.
Right. So if you know you're going to take a semester off, then you plan to make those repayments, but then you can get more loans after that as long as you're in good standing.
Right.
Excellent.
If it's only a semester, it's less than 6 months, so you're good for one semester. So
Right.
if that switches into 2 semesters, then that becomes a
Does
problem.
it count the summer? That was
Well, summer is less than 6 months, so summer's
4 months.
fine.
okay.
Right.
Perfect.
And if a student, just a note, if a student decides to go to school but not take loans,
Right.
I was going to say that.
right, continuation of interest-free status, there's a form or online application that they do need to let us know that I'm still in school, don't put my loans in repayment, so that
Okay.
way your loans are maintained in good status.
Makes sense. If you get scholarships, would that reduce the amount of OSAP that you would be eligible to receive?
Yes, it does, to an extent. Anything in excess of approximately $1,800 will reduce your OSAP dollar for dollar. However, remember, scholarships are non-repayable assistance, so we want you to get scholarships. We recently had a student, he received $10,000, boom, all of a sudden at the end of the year. So now he's in an overpayment situation because he's received more. We've already given him his OSAP, and now we've given him a $10,000 scholarship, and so now he has to repay OSAP for some of those funds, right, to keep his file in good standing.
But there are some awards that are exempt from that. So it just depends. It just depends on the type of award. Usually, if it's financial needs based, it won't be counted towards your OSAP as if it was income. So if it's a scholarship, usually it is counted towards as a resource for your education. If it's needs based, typically not. So if someone's not sure, they can always ask our office specifically or the university's office. But yeah, like Jackie said, there is a cap of $1,800.
Okay. So this is a combination OSAP RESP question. If a student is receiving OSAP, can they withdraw from their RESP as much as they want after the 13 weeks?
Yes.
Okay. Easy answer.
Just need proof of enrollment.
And that is what a change, because prior, a few years ago, RESPs did count against you. So there has been a movement to ensure that people who try to save up for their education are not penalized by accessing those funds. So it's no longer counted in the OSAP application.
Okay. I'm going to answer a couple of questions here because I know the answer. University does not include grade 11U courses in scholarships. They're only your grade 12U or M classes. And RESPs are $500 per grant per child, but as long as it's not, it has to be then $2,500 per child to get the $500 per child.
Exactly. Yeah. They match 20% of whatever you contribute to a maximum of you receiving $500 per child.
Yes.
Per year.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Is there a disability tax credit RESP option? That would be the RESD.
So that is the RDSP.
RDSP.
So that is a completely separate plan. So there is an option if a beneficiary qualifies for an RDSP, which means they have to have the disability tax credit. They can transfer the RESP funds to the RDSP. But they obviously have to qualify for the RDSP as well.
Because the grants in that program are much higher.
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm. See, I've learned some things over the years. Scholarships at the university. Can you set up a profile before you have a student number? I don't believe so.
Usually you will get a student number even as long as you have submitted your UAC, you'll be able to get a student number. So students will have access to that. And again, we're working on having it available so you can search through all of our scholarships. If you choose to, it'll be online and you'll find out some of the scholarships that are available.
And scholarships often have much earlier deadlines than I think parents and students expect, because there are things that would have passed by September, October, November, end of December, even before you knew where you were going necessarily. There are scholarships. So if you're listening and your kids are in like grade 11, grade 10, or grade 9, start looking up those things, particularly if you have specific ethnic backgrounds or business backgrounds like CAW. If your families are involved in any of the clubs in the city, unions in the city, look into those things, because you may not necessarily hear about them, but like the lady said, there are scholarships that go unclaimed every year. Hundreds of thousands of scholarships that go unclaimed because they didn't get an applicant. And someone did say, let's say there's 5 qualifications. They want you to be over 6 feet tall, have blue eyes, but you're not 6 feet tall, but you have blue eyes. Apply anyway, because if they don't get the applications that they need that hit all of the qualifications, they will then look at the ones that have 4 out of the 5 qualifications. So even if you don't think you qualify, apply anyway, was what I was told.
I was just going to chime in there as well that credit unions are often forgotten.
Right.
So we just finished our student, our student award cutoff was the 23rd of April, and we award $2,000 to a student throughout our region for 6 branches, but all of Southwestern Ontario. So it amounts to, I think, $70,000 in grants that we give out every year as well. So the credit unions do as well. So.
Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of little things out there. Do your homework. Like someone said, if you do an hour's worth of homework and get $1,000 scholarship, you just made $1,000 an hour, right? Like, it's an hour of your time, but it can be a lot of money. If it takes you 10 hours and you end up with some money, when you do that math that way, you're usually ending up on the good side of things. Okay, is there extra grants and scholarships for disabled students who may not need the extra things you talked about, Jackie? They don't require a note taker or things like that, that there wouldn't be extra expenses, but just that disability.
Yeah, it's already factored into the OSAP application. Oh. It's an extra $2,000 per semester that students with a disability are provided through the regular OSAP application.
Okay.
But can I add one thing? If they have to have at least $1 financial need. So if you submit an OSAP application and it comes up with no financial need, you don't qualify, you wouldn't have access to that grant. You would have to have at least $1 of financial need in order to get that $2,000.
And that was something I remember hearing, that there are certain jobs and things on campus that you have to show financial need to get. So even if you have determined that you may not need a lot of OSAP, if you take $1 of OSAP, then you qualify for different things on campus. Is that correct, Jack?
I'm not quite sure about different like jobs or something. However, if you need to demonstrate in any way, shape, or form financial need, usually with the bursaries or with a different department who may request it, that is one sure way that, yes, I'm eligible for financial aid. Done. I've demonstrated financially. And keep in mind, this information, we're not going to be sharing this information. Financial aid information is never shared with other departments. We will never share that. So the students themselves will have to give that information. We will not. The students departments cannot call us for that.
Okay. Someone's asking for a clarification on grade 11 and grade 12 grades. It doesn't matter when you take the class. It depends on what the course code is.
Yeah, correct? Top 6 U or M level.
Yes, but only grade 12 U or M. If you got 95 in grade 11 U English and you got 64 in grade 12 U English, your 95 from grade 11 doesn't count, just your grade 12 counts. Correct?
For the college, we only take grade 12 coded courses, so that has to have a 4 in there.
Yep.
It could be university, college, mixed, some open, depending on the course code.
Right.
And again, for us, it's not top 6 for the college. It's 6 or more. So if you have 8 courses, we're averaging all 8.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for the university, it's just a top 6 U or M. We don't care when you take those. So you could have taken it in grade 11. You could have. Some students might have. It's just your top 6 U or M, because we've had some students who've taken in grade 11 some courses.
But are they coded, Jackie, are they coded as grade 11 courses as well? Are they okay for the university?
As long as it's U or M.
Okay. There you go. That's a difference, yeah.
That may change some things in my house. I'm going to be doing some refiguring when this is over. All righty then. Do you have to be a client of the credit union to use your RESP services? No. Excellent.
No. I mean, it would be great, but no, it's not necessary.
Actually, I think they were asking about the grant that you offer, the scholarship.
The student award?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, sorry, the student
okay.
award. Do you have to be a member of the credit union to apply and receive that award?
No, so it's open to anyone. We have 6 branches in our region, right? So any student can apply. Obviously, we're looking generally for a student that's going to be attending post-secondary in the fall. So the cutoff's usually around the end of April, and we pay it out, I think June or July, but it does go into the no fee student account. That's the only thing, right? So your student would have an account with Libro, but there's no fees or anything, and that's just our only way to deposit the grant for them to have access to it.
Right. And that is something is that just for your first year of post-secondary, or can you apply?
You can continue to apply. We've actually had a couple of students that went to the University of Windsor that were selected a couple
years in a row. Yeah. And that is something to note, that there are things that will come up. A lot of things go away. That's the truth. A lot of things go away when you move from high school to post-secondary after that first year, but there are other scholarships and things that will continue for second, third, fourth year into the future, correct? Jackie and Linda, I think?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, correct.
Okay, excellent. And then someone says, if by chance you've waited and you haven't gotten an RESP and your child is 14, can you still take advantage of government grants? You're only going to be getting a few years.
So this is where it gets super, it's tricky. So you can there's certain qualifications that once they turn 15, you've had to have had, I don't remember it off the top of my head. I know there's one of the criteria that needs to be met prior to is there needs to at least have been, I think, a $2,500 contribution in the previous year. And Nika, I don't know if you could remember the other one, but it's right. It's 1 or 2. So short answer is probably not.
I don't think you get full benefit of the grants.
No, exactly. You're not going to benefit as much.
You can benefit for a portion of the grants that are available, but not all. There's just not enough time to make up that. Yeah,
pretty much. If you're talking about making up 1 year at a time, for maximum you'd have to start by about 8, about age 8, maybe 9 at the very oldest, in order to get the full 1 year at a time.
You can start as soon as that baby has a social insurance number. You can go and open up an RESP. So, and I mean, ideally, you want to do it as soon as you can to take opportunities of the grant, growth on your investments. Obviously, if you do wait until the child is 8, you have 8 years of carry forward room that you can catch up on. You can put $5,000 in every year and get $1,000 every year until those 8 years are caught up on.
Yep. Okay. Linda and Jackie, will this final crazy quadmester of grades count towards scholarships, bursaries, and entrances into the university and college?
Our office is currently determining that right now, so stand by.
Yeah. So hopefully you didn't have your best class, whoever it was that asked that. Hopefully your best class wasn't in quad 4, because I know that gets tight for the schools.
Yeah, I don't know if we'll squeeze in quad 4, but we're still working out the logistics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll evaluate as long as we have those grades. Whenever those grades come in, we're going to take a look and provide the scholarships.
Okay. I'm just running back to see if I missed anything. If I've missed your question, please feel free to type it again, because I am doing my best to keep track. Okay. If your top U courses, including grade 11 and 12, are 80% or higher, is there a grant automatically from the university for $1,000? Is it 80, 85? 85. And at 90, it's
2,500, and at 95, 4,000. And
right.
the 90 and 95 are renewable, so you have the option of getting those following years.
Okay. All right.
And it's not 84.99 is not 85. So unfortunately, that's not going to make the cutoff.
No. Okay. Someone is asking, and it's a legitimate question, if you are in a position that you have no money towards university, we certainly don't. The government is certainly offering a lot of incentives. The college and the university want to help people be successful in their future. And OSAP is certainly one of the things that you can apply for, as well as all the scholarships and grants at the schools. And I do know there's a lot of need-based things as well, right? So they should be calling you. Don't give up on your dream. Call and see what the schools can help you with, because they really want you to be successful. And I have learned that over the years that, that we are blessed in this community with the college and the university that we have, and that the ability they have to work together has been demonstrated over and over again with the amount of things that they do for the city. And we certainly are grateful for your time and for the contributions of your organizations. So
I do have a caveat with that.
Yes.
Well, for financial aid, the assumption is that the student is responsible for their own education. Next, they will look at the parents. And so that's one of the reasons why we'll look at your parental income, right. And then parents and spouses. Right. And so the structure of financial aid is that you are going to be planning for education, and you will be saving some money to go to school, because we don't want you to start school and then all of a sudden the second semester you have absolutely no funds, no resources, because there are only limits to what we can do. So during this pandemic, we've seen a huge amount of need that students are having, domestic and international students. And so we want you to come prepared. And that's one of the reasons why we started our slides with budgeting. Mm-hmm. Like, put a few pennies away. Yep. We no longer have pennies in Canada, but try to find some. Go, Linda.
I was just going to suggest that I know a lot of parents and students are hesitant to apply for OSAP, thinking that they don't want loans or they might not qualify. But I always encourage every student, submit the application. It doesn't take much time. And if you don't like the result of it, you can close your application, or you might see that you're qualified for more grants than you thought you would. And that's, non-repayable funding. And also the payback with the loans when you leave school, it is pretty flexible with the National Student Loan Service Center. So I wouldn't give up on education because you don't have too much savings going into the school year. Right. OSAP is a great option. And then again, once you're in school, there are so many opportunities for bursaries and scholarships that a lot of students in our college, they get refund checks of, awards because their tuition has been paid in full. Excellent.
There are a lot of parents saying thank you in the chat. I wanted to make sure I relayed that to you. People are very grateful. More than 75% of our audience has continued to stay with us for the entire time this evening. I think I have. Oh, can RESPs be a savings account? Just a straight savings account, not investments?
So I'm not too sure I understand the question. So you can just put money in an RESP and not put it in any type of investment.
Okay, that's what they're asking.
Yeah, but I don't know if that'd be in their best interest. Right. If it's going to be sitting there for a long time, right?
Right, yeah.
But yeah, it is possible.
Okay. And also keep in mind, if you are applying for OSAP and you have like a tax-free savings account, that needs to be reported on your application.
Right.
It's considered an asset, which would be a type of income.
Right. Okay. Is there any last things that have popped into the minds of our presenters this evening that you'd like to leave parents with before we go?
I have something.
Yay!
So what a lot of people don't realize, a lot of students don't realize, if they do not pay off their OSAP, and it does go into collections, it does impact their credit score.
Yes.
Which then snowballs into they cannot
get a house,
money to buy
get
a
car. Yeah.
So that is something to always keep in mind too, is, like she already said, making sure that loan stays in good standing, because if not, and it goes to collections, it will cause problems.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
That it does. Okay.
So if you borrow, pay back.
Yeah. And if you're having trouble pay back, be honest and talk to them, because they'd rather work with you and pay it back over a longer period of time than have you default. So
100%. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, on behalf of the Parent Involvement Committee, I want to thank everybody for being here this evening, from our Libro representatives, the university, and the college, as well as my backup for Mr. Paul DeMarco from the school board, who's there getting all our tech needs done. I want to tell you that on the site that you went tonight to link through to this presentation, there are 2 more presentations we have coming up in the next 2 weeks. Next Wednesday is Danny Pahar, who is a cybersecurity expert. And if the presenters here tonight want to log on and hear Danny, he is fabulous. I've worked with him doing a presentation before. My favorite thing that he told me was that someone had their house robbed because the robbers broke in through their refrigerator, because they had a smart fridge that was keeping track of their grocery lists and stuff, and they figured out a way into their system that could track when they were home based on their fridge. So if those are the kind of tips you can get from this guy, he's really got his finger on the know-how to keep businesses, to keep families and people safe. He says you keep your information safe, and that's how you stay safe. So that's next Wednesday at 7 p.m. And you'll find that link in the same place, same page you got into this one. And then in another week from that, on the Thursday, the 13th, we have Dr. John Gallagher, who will be speaking about skilled trades and the need for skilled trades and the promotion of skilled trades within our youth, in order to keep our society running, because we are running really short on the trades. And just a promotion for St. Clair, some great trade programs going on at St. Clair, and some great combined trade programs going on between St. Clair and the university. So you can link those through there, share it with your friends. Doesn't have to be from this board. This presentation will be recorded, and it will be up the same place you linked to it tonight. It'll be up there sometime tomorrow. We'll give Paul some time to work that out. But thank you very much. Thanks, Lisa, for organizing everything tonight. And have a great evening, everyone. And thanks so much for being here.
Thanks.
Bye. Thank you.